Good afternoon, Praetoria. It's 11:04 a.m. It's Tuesday, September 5th in the year 2023. And I'm joined by my co-host and life partner, Liberty Lass. This is a show. It's entitled Around Praetoria. What is Around Praetoria and what is this and why are we doing it?
So hello everybody, I'm Liberty Lass. If you haven't heard from me before, this is a chance for Agrid and I to get together. Today's just going to be the two of us, but tune in next week to see what lies in the future. The hope is that we just we get a chance to showcase some of the areas of the company and the team that you don't necessarily get to hear about on Town Hall. It's less so what are the updates of the game or what's the roadmap, which you would already hear about, and more who are the people, what's going on, what's the juicy gossip, and we can chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought for a long time that the real story here are the people that participate. Some of that is your glorious conquests in the guild battles and the brawls and the tournaments and the ranked. Some of that is just like the way that this game has changed some lives, both for the better and for the worse. And just hearing people's different perspectives. So, I think today Liberty Lass has some questions that she wants to ask me, but I think in the future our goal is to go sort of spread this out, find more of our community members and team members, and less technical stuff and more just like getting to know people. I really think that the story of the humans that are involved in this is just absolutely essential to, knowing the direction of our game, because it's really just our community is this amalgamation of all the people that are here and learning about them, what drives them, what they care about, the parts they like, the parts they don't, where they want us to go and what they hate, whatever, all that stuff. Who are these people? Who lives here in Praetoria with us? And let's get to know our neighbors.
Can I just say, I kind of love people calling me Mrs. Aggie.
Mrs. Aggie? Okay.
Okay, so Splinterlands. Oh, wait, well, before I say that, I did specially request that today is just that I get to interview Ag. I've heard of him talk a lot, sprinkle in these little bits of his history throughout town halls and various other things. But I kind of wanted to just sit down, give like a little chunk of your past.
All of it? I mean, I have some embarrassing parts in there.
All right, so let's start with your birth and just go straight through.
Sweet.
Okay, so Splinterlands is 5 years old, but I've noticed that you are older than 5. So I thought we could get a little of that mystery out. So have you always been interested in gaming?
I don't know always, but since pretty early on, I used to, at summer camp, I remember sitting around, not really playing D&D, but like designing dungeons and designing prizes and designing rewards and like building maps and all of that for either my brother or some of my friends to wander around and kill all the bad guys. I didn't even like DMing all that much. I really just liked the design part of like, let me make an adventure for people. And then I didn't even really like playing the adventure. I just liked designing that part. So those are some of my earliest memories of like, what would that look like, or how did I know that I was like into game and game design? And actually, it started even earlier. My first world building experience, which I credit so much of like this dumb little moment. I was on my dad's lap. It was MS-DOS, and he was typing in this. He was building a like planet generator, but it was all text. And we were doing things like how many karate instructors should there be? How many teachers should there be? How many cows do we need in this world? And he would put it in, and it was just like, item, random number generator, print screen. And so it would just say like, in this world, there are 15 cows and 23 karate instructors and like, 5 teachers. And that was my first experience world building. And I must have been like 5, sitting on my dad's lap doing MS-DOS stuff.
Wow. Okay. So what is it about game design that like, just talking to you and you're talking about this, there's like a spark that I can see. What is it that resonates with you?
So you and I are raising two boys, right? We have an older one and a younger one. And the older one has clear tendencies of a builder. You get him in front of blocks and he just builds up blocks and they're like towers and magnets and all this stuff. The younger one seems to be an explorer where you set him down, you look around, and 2 minutes later, he's like on the far side of the room or on the third story of the house. He's just like, it's hard to keep him contained in a small area. And he does a lot of treasure hunting. He wants to run out there and treasure hunt. If I had to pick a word that I like, it's designer or inventor. I like creating games. I like designing new things. I like trying to solve hard problems, come up with novel solutions, and put those things together. So design is it's 2 parts listening and 1 part action. It's like 2 parts question and 1 part answer. It's like, what are all the key problems that exist? What are we solving for, and how do we build this thing? And it is an intellectual challenge to come up with a really great design.
Right. Okay. So as a kid, you love this. And then you went to school for crypto gaming entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I took the long route. That's accurate. So I went to Bates College, and Bates is this very hippie, very crunchy liberal arts school up in Maine. And there I studied chemistry, theater, and education. The chemistry was the main piece of it turns out I'm a 3rd generation chemist. My grandfather was a pharmacist. My dad is a oncology specialist by way of chemistry. And so I went straight chemistry. And along the way, I had a really great private education growing up. So education was super important to me, and wanting to go help others learn and figure out ways to learn. And then theater. I did a ton of theater. I did one-man shows. I did a lot of avant-garde stuff. I did playwriting. And then, so I started with some, I immediately after college, I went to grad school. I got a PhD. I did a little bit of industry work. And after that, I did some high school teaching. And then I did some college professing, and then I switched to sales. My kids had so much success with this online homework system I was using that when I told the company about it, they were like, "That's amazing results. We'll pay you to tell other people." And I said, "Sure." And it became a sales gig, and it launched a sales gig. And when crypto hit, I basically abandoned everything for it. Any chemistry background, anything I've been doing, any education stuff. I still do a lot of education. We're doing theater stuff right now, but instead of chemistry, now it's all the topic of crypto. And but I just abandoned all of it. I was like, I got this bug, and the bug was peace, prosperity, and freedom. And I'm like,
You're really jumping ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm, you ask a question of, hey, you studied chemistry or you studied crypto. And I'm like, no, none of what I have no background in economics. I don't have any background in computer science. I can run a Linux server barely. It's like, how the hell did I get here? And it's because I took the sales route and a community building route, and had a mentality around values that I thought that this community could embrace.
Okay, so just rewinding a little bit, because you went through 100 different things there that you've done in your past life. So going back, so you studied teaching and theater, but mainly chemistry. What drew you to chemistry? You said your family does chemistry, but
so my brother is a Jefferson Scholar down at UVA. So he's no longer. I mean, he's now a professor at MIT or something, and he's a genius. So it's really hard to live in his shadow of here's a really bright guy. And it turned out that he really sucked at chemistry. And not only did he suck at it, he hated it. And, in my sophomore year of high school, my dad moved out to California. And so I'm going to this school in California. It's my first year out there. California is very different than Massachusetts, where I grew up. cliquier, socially different. All my friends were East Coasters that were like misplaced because I couldn't like connect with these weird West Coast people. And I took this chemistry class because that's where I was in my course. But in California, it was seniors. And I was like, I guess I was a sophomore. And I smoked them. I smoked all of them. And I did it almost effortlessly. That class would be something like, all right, guys, take out your pens. We're going to have a test today. I'd finish it in like 20 minutes. I'd ace it and I'd walk out of the room. And the juniors and seniors that were taking that class were all like scratching their heads, like, who the hell is that kid? So I realized it's something that I was really good at. It came very naturally to me. It's honestly just in my blood. And I realized this was a place that I could differentiate myself from my brother. I could be independently good at something. And, other people hated it and was like so hard for them. And I was just like strolling my way through this class like it was nothing. So I thought, sure, I can go do this. That's fun. And at one point later on, at the time that I chose this, I totally was so self-absorbed that like I forgot that my parents and my family were chemists at all. So my dad calls me like my freshman year and we're just chatting. And I said, Dad, I think I picked my major. I'm going to go be a chemist. And he's like, that's amazing. You're a third generation chemist. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense.
So then you practiced chemistry. Do you practice chemistry?
You have to do a lot of practicing.
Chemistry?
Yeah, I did a lot. I worked in chemistry. So my first gig was at BASF, which is like the world's largest chemical company. And it was part of their professional development program. And so, man, this takes me back a ways, but I was trying to get out of grad school. My advisor was telling me there's no way you're going to make it on time. I convinced him, hey, look, just let me go interview for this job with BASF. Nothing's going to happen out of it, but let's see what happens. And they offered me a job. And so I told them, you have to let me graduate. I know you don't want me to graduate now. I'm only 4 years deep, but think about it. Like, one, I have a job offer, and two, the big thing to you is that if your graduate students can land industrial careers, people will want to work for you. So my partner at the time was screaming at me, get me out of Texas. I don't want to be here. My advisor was telling me there's no way you're going to make it. And the job was telling me, if you don't get here by a certain date, we can't extend the offer. So I just worked my tail off trying to do that. But I was able to graduate. I defended my thesis. They maybe add one extra page to my thesis out of like just some very small minor details I'd forgotten. So I put that in, and I graduated. I got out of there, and I worked for BASF. The first 9 months, I worked as a chemist north of Pittsburgh in this like inorganic chemistry plant. And then the next 9 months, I was in Wyandotte, Michigan, and I was working in the what did they call that? It was their sustainability department. They made a fair amount of money doing marketing based off of being green and being price savvy. So oftentimes their products, BASF is sort of known as being high priced initially, but what people don't always recognize was that their products would typically save money over the long term. So you would pay a high upfront cost, but then your life cycle cost would be a lot less. And so, and also the impact was a lot greener, less chemicals that were wasted, less harmful stuff in the atmosphere, all this other stuff. And so they made these charts that were like positive economically and then positively environmentally, and they would rank themselves and their competitors on these charts. And so I learned a lot about like running a sustainable business and how you do sustainable marketing and trying to talk about who your company is, what you do, the prices that you have, the problems that you solve. I learned that doing some marketing for them.
So you did chemistry and marketing with them?
Yeah, I did. I was a bench chemist doing inorganic chemistry. I lost, I always had this image of like the stuff that I was going to do was going to help people. And I was working in the lab, and I reinvented one of the processes they use. So they have these like giant chemical cauldrons where they're doing all these reactions. And I took one of their processes that took like 3 or 4 days and was inefficient and made a crappy product. And I showed them a different way of how to do it. And they ran it, and it took less than 24 hours. It was like 99% pure, and it was like 98, 97% conversion. So totally revolutionized this one small piece of what they were doing. And they kept the price the same. They didn't, they just kept doing it the same way. The purity was a little higher now for the product, but I had this image of some theoretical girl with leukemia who I was helping, and it turned out that I was really just helping BASF investors make more money. And it's fine if BASF investors make more money, but I wasn't there to do that. I was there to go help this theoretical kid with leukemia, and I was like, oh, hell no, I want nothing to do with this anymore. And I just lost. I don't know, lost a lot of my desire to do chemistry on the day that they just kept the price the same.
So chemistry is more was a means to an end, as opposed to you loving the process of chemistry itself.
Yeah. So I grew up in a progressive Democrat household, and I don't ascribe to all of those parts. I walk away from a lot of it. But I still, some of the progressive values that I was raised with that, you want other people to have a nice education. You want other people to have a nice healthcare. You want other people to live a good life. And, the how of how you get there, I think, is very distorted and not accurate or a good process. But those values I think still are with me, that, a rising tide lifts all boats. We want everybody to do well and be successful. And, doing chemistry was fun, and being in the lab was neat. I've been blown up a couple times, and I've gone through a bunch of things, and like the learning process was fantastic, but I'm a designer. I'm not like just some people just want to learn for learning's sake. I'm not some like wizard locked in a tower that just wants to like study spells for the rest of my life. I want it to have an impact. I want it to have some kind of measurable change in somebody's life. And I couldn't get that where I was. And I'm not sure I could do that with chemistry. I mean, maybe if I was like the best chemist ever and could make even more incredible things happen than what I did in my career, sure. But I didn't even really do anything that incredible in my career. I helped some students. Teaching was meaningful. I enjoyed
Did that come right after chemistry?
Yeah, right after so my mom had cancer and she was dying. So I was like, I need to get the hell out of Wyandotte, and I need to get back home to Massachusetts. And the easiest gig I could find was a high school teacher. And I did that. I took a gig at an inner city school. I worked in Lawrence, which is like where all the Hispanic immigrants go. And it's, there's a lot of drug rehabilitation there, a fair amount of crime, lots of gangs. That high school was a very rough place to be. And I was like, whatever, I'll go teach here for a little bit and do my public service of, inner city school teaching. And, it was interesting and enjoyable, but I wasn't really thinking about the stress of that with a dying mother at the same time. So I switched gears, and I taught at a fancier public high school, which was in Natick. Did that for a year, and then she passed. And I'm like, okay, well, my goal is not to be a high school teacher. This is cool for a year or two, but this is not what I want to do. But I used that experience to go land a job as a professor of chemistry, and I did that down at the Maritime Academy, which is like right across from Cape Cod, and enjoyed my experience. I taught there for 4 years. All the cadets were military cadets. Yes, sir. No, sir. Salutes. Like they dressed in uniform. And I like those kids. I like the cadets. I like the patriotic people that typically fill those roles. Texas A&M has like a pretty big military quadrant. So my favorite students there were the Corps cadets over that were part of that. It was a really natural fit to go teach these Maritime Academy kids, and I dug it. I liked teaching them, and my students did well. They didn't like me. I was a hard professor and a hard ass, but they did well.
Did you feel like you were fulfilling that ultimate calling of helping people when you were teaching?
Sort of. So there's this kid. There's this kid Ramses, and he was in the Lawrence High School, and you know what? One of the things that made me sad, I wept when I left there, and mostly because of this one kid. And I was like, this is one of the smartest, brightest kids I know. He is not very learned, so he had not acquired a lot of knowledge, but he was one of the brightest kids I've ever met. And I was so torn by that. And it was so rotten to me that this kid who was so bright had, you know, this horrible learning environment where you can't. I had like 42 kids in a class for high school. Like, you can't get any individual attention. I could line the kids up from one side of my class to the other, and how much English they knew was kind of this spectrum. So on one side of my class, they spoke none, and the other side, they were like fluent. And I don't know, it was so wrong to me. And so when I tried to inspire him the best I could. And at one point, a couple of years later, he wrote to me and said, I'm in college. And that was really meaningful to me. But you know, that story is like few and far between. So I'm glad that I was able to do that. I'm glad that I could help one or two kids kind of like navigate a different path or learn differently or have a different sense of self-esteem or self-worth, or be challenged and rise to the occasion. After I taught at the Maritime Academy, I had a couple people tell me, hey, they call me D. Reich, Dr. Reich. So D. Reich, that they were all these like cadets and meatheady and jarheads. I freaking love them. But I had a couple people that wrote me later and said, you know, I'm a medical doctor now, and I never would have done it if it wasn't for your class. And so that's meaningful to me too. Not as meaningful as the kid from the inner city that I felt like I put on a different trajectory, but you know, I gave kids skills that they could use for a different portion of their life. But you know, overall, to me, there's some like aspects of numbers that big numbers are exciting to me, little numbers are not. So, you know, one of the things that was appealing about moving from just my class to doing like Edtech consulting and teaching people how to use technology in a classroom was like, I could reach a lot more students. You know, when I got Ohio State to adopt some of the software, and I got, you know, Drexel, and I got Harvard, Brown, Yale, like, you know, I was impacting the way that people were learning in a pretty substantial way. I mean, it was thousands of kids at a time rather than my classes of 25 kids at a time. And so I felt like if I could help more people, that would be more rewarding and enjoyable. And I like that. You know, I lost some of the connection to like my fondness for an individual student. Like,
right, no one's writing to you saying,
yeah, thanks for this homework.
You sold my teacher.
But you know, in my own class, I saw it change my grades. What was it? It was like at least 2 letter grades. So they went from a 40 to a 60 on the final exam, which is not. It's normal in chemistry that you have a low exam grade. You want a big curve and whatever. But they went from a 40 to a 60. That's 2 letter grades. It was a 50% improvement in how my class average did. And the like other teachers that were there didn't see the same thing. So the choices that I made and my approach as an instructor led to a 50% improvement in a single semester. Like, you know, normally I realized early on when I was teaching that I asked the students to just write me a 1-paragraph summary of whatever, who they are, where they've been. And
at the very beginning,
on the first day of class. And I could stack those papers from how well they were written, having nothing to do with chemistry, and I could have given a grade right then and there
for the whole class.
For the whole class, and it'd be like accurate, like 80-85%. And so I can't change the trajectory. You know, these kids were like 14, 15, 16. So like, you know, 4 months with me or 8 months with me, it's hard to make that much of a difference. But that was my goal. My goal was to like look at my kids, see where they're at, and just move them up. you barely speak English. You can't do math. Let's go teach you some basic skills. You're a really advanced reader surrounded by people that can't do math and can't speak English. How do I challenge you? And it was like trying to figure all that out. And again, personally meaningful, but is there a legacy? Is there an impact? How much am I affecting people or changing lives? And I just walked away saying, this is a lot of effort, a lot of emotional effort, and not a lot of payback. Either financially, very little. There were parts that were rewarding, but a lot of it's like, kids are acting out in class and just being teenagers and being dumb, and that's fine. But I don't know. In a lot of those circumstances, it was really hard because I had mixed skill groups. So like if you have entirely terrible students, you can work on them on basic skills. And if you have entirely gifted students, you forget about skills and you teach them knowledge. It's really hard to do both at the same time.
Especially with a large class.
Yeah, especially 42 kids. So either like one group is bored to tears. I had one kid, he would always like make fun and be annoying and do all this other stuff. And I would make people like literally sit there in class and read parts of the textbook. And at one point it struck me like, this kid can't read. Like, this is some of that acting out is because the guy is 16 in public schools and literally can't read English. I mean, he could, but it was like the book of chemistry, like,
you can't teach chemistry.
Yeah, you can't teach chemistry. And it was amazing to me. The school handed the teachers a pamphlet of like, you work in this Spanish speaking school and it's really important that you reach the kids where they are and don't try to teach them English through complicated means. And I raised my hand and I'm like, is chemistry a complicated means? Why am I teaching 42 kids about a third of which can't speak English? No, that's not a slight on those students. They came from the Dominican, they came from Haiti. Like, why don't we teach them English first and then teach them chemistry? And they did not like me for raising questions like that.
Don't make waves, Aggie.
Don't make waves.
Was that the main lesson you took away from your time in teaching? Don't make waves?
Man, I don't think that's true everywhere.
That was a joke.
Oh, no. But one of the worst days I had as a teacher was my teacher training for Lawrence. And they were talking about discipline, and I was just talking to my neighbor, and they were like, Dr. Reich, what do you think about discipline? I'm like, oh, you guys. Well, honestly, discipline isn't that bad. If you get these kids and you teach them to love learning, then their hormones come up and they get annoying, but you just bring them back. And her response was, don't you think that's a little bit much to ask of these kids?
To love learning.
To love learning. This is the instructor who didn't believe that these kids could learn to love learning.
So that's not just the message that a classroom of kids would get, but all of the teachers
all of the
classrooms.
So I think there's something ingrained in some of the lower performing schools that they don't believe in their students. They're there to babysit. They don't have high standards, and they fail over and over. And when you go to the higher performing schools, a lot of this is culture. What is a culture? Is it a culture of excellence? Is it a culture that you believe in the people? And there it wasn't. And as a consequence, they had a miserable time. The students didn't perform well. 15-year-olds couldn't read. I don't know. It was exhausting.
So then you found this software that helps them progress. And how'd you find that? So,
I always graded by hand, and I prided myself on, the amount of time I'd take to go sit there and grade papers. But my daughter was born, and she was pretty colicky. We did some medical interventions early on that I don't think I should have done. And I witnessed her get really sick, and that persisted with her for a long time. And so when she was born and colicky and not sleeping, I couldn't sleep, and I didn't have the capacity to go hand grade everything. So this woman who had been bothering me for weeks on end, being like, try this online homework. I said, fine, I'll do it. Your stupid thing, one semester, it'll be fine. But it turns out it was really useful. And I try to keep some of that same mentality in what we build in Splinterlands. But the attitude is give them the information they need at the instant that they need it. So, the students all had questions and they would get things wrong. And this program would think like a bad student. And it would be like, okay, if you divide by 2 instead of multiply by 2, this is the answer you would get. So if you give that answer, go correct them and say, hey, go check your ratios, check your something, to go provide feedback about how they might have gotten there.
So instead of getting all the way to the end and then saying, oh, you got it wrong, it catches it right away and shows you what you did wrong.
Yeah. And as a result, it really helped my students. So I take that with me in the design of like anything that I build from here on out. It's sort of like, why didn't this thing work? Right. So, hey, you had a battle and it tells you right at the time that you couldn't battle again. You ran out of resource credits. And here you got a certain amount of rewards. This is where those rewards came from. Your airdrop is this. Where did that come from? And it's always about trying to give people the amount of information they need right at the screen that they're on and try to help them get access to that.
So you tried it out. It worked really well. And then you wrote to the company and said, this is really great.
Yeah. So the rep's name was Haley, and I told Haley, hey, I just took this final exam and my kids got a 2-letter grade improvement and their grades are 50% higher. And that sort of got around in the company and they're like, great, let's go hire you and you can go tell other professors that story. It started just by doing Zoom calls while I was a professor, and like the rep Haley would set up a call and say, all right, go talk to Jesse. He'll go walk you through it. And there I was, hi, I'm Dr. Reich and I'm representing this company. And let me tell you about this and why I might help you too. And I give a presentation, answer questions, and sort of kick it back to the rep. And
so it was like a side hustle.
Yeah, it was totally a side hustle. I mean, being a professor didn't pay very much. I had a kid and we had private school that we wanted to do and daycare and, a nicer house and all that part of the American dream that keeps getting further and further away from people. And I needed money. So that was my first side hustle. The first one being, I'm just going to be a professor. And then the second part being, okay, I'm going to go do this Edtech stuff. And eventually, in part because I was successful and that model was successful and they hired other people, they started hiring sales engineers to literally go campus to campus and give these presentations in person to groups of people. And so to me, it felt like a thesis defense. In a thesis defense, you have like your 3 committee members, maybe some other professors in the room, and they just pound you with questions and hopefully you walk out unscathed. And that's what I did over and over and over again. I'd walk into a committee. There could be anywhere. I think my biggest one was University of Kentucky, which had like 34 professors in the room with me when I was presenting this. It could be as small as 3, but literally 3 dozen or more I've had in there, and just present and then hit whatever barrage of questions, whatever random professor wanted to ask me about. So that's what that gig looked like.
So you said it's a little like defending a thesis, which you had experience with, but other than that, you're now in sales full time. Was there a steep learning curve, or did you feel like with chemistry where you were naturally inclined?
Well, I think the theater helped. Like there's sales. So there's a couple different ways to do sales, but I think there's only one way to do sales well, and that's to be a good consultant. So you learn everything you can and you talk to the person and you see what they value and you try to match what they value with what you're doing, and then be honest whether it's a good fit or not. Because like getting bad customers is not good for the business. So, I talked to some people and it wouldn't be a good fit, and that's fine. But I talked to a lot of people and it was a good fit and they could see how it could benefit their students. And really the only thing that made, I had like a really technical pitch that I would give them. Here are my grades. Here's what happened. Here's how it works. Here's some of the feedback. Let's go demonstrate this. And the only thing that really made it a sales call is at the end, I'd say, could you see yourself using this? Will you please adopt this? And so, out of that hour-long presentation, 55 minutes were being a chemistry nerd and a little bit of a theater presentation. And the last 5 minutes were just like, hey, could you do this? So it wasn't like a super salesy role, like, I'm not chasing people down the street. I'm not emailing them day after day. I was the sales engineer, sales scientist. I would present, answer any questions, and then, the reps would kind of follow up with them and see what they wanted to do.
And then that lasted until the company was bought out, right?
Yeah, they got purchased by Macmillan, which is like a $5 billion per year publishing company. And I worked for them for a year. But they fired all the management that came from our company was like eating the lunch of all the different big publishers. We would work with open source software. We would offer free textbooks and say, get this online homework that goes with it. And they were selling like $350 book bundles, and people were switching to us. So they bought us to kill us, and they still use it. They would like offer it in the cases where they couldn't get a book sale, but they squashed it pretty hard. And they did not like, all the senior members and the leads got canned. So I was devastated, but it turned out okay, because that's around the time that I found crypto. And I think that might have even been in 2018 when Matt and I connected, and we were like,
so this is the culmination.
Yeah.
How'd you meet Matt?
Matt just reached out to me one day. He was, initially we were on Steam, and Steam is that's the previous hard fork of Hive. Hive came out of it was a hard fork of Steam. And at the time people were building these these bots to go vote. And we called them bid bots. And it was hard to use them because there wasn't, what you would do is you'd write a post and then you'd use a bid bot to go, one, get yourself money, but two, try to get exposure, because the higher your vote value, the more people saw your post.
Is that cheating?
It's sort of like cheating, but to a lot of the bot owners, it was just advertising, right? You would pay for the advertising. So you would pay $50 to get a $50 vote. So you get your money back, but then you got all these eyeballs and views on your post. So to them, it was just advertising. And not everybody saw it that way, but Matt had built a tool that let people kind of like find out what the good voting times were, when it was appropriate, how many other people were voting. And he put all this stuff on a nice rotating schedule, and, it was really simple. So he said, hey, I want some help with this. And I said, all right, give me half and I'll get everybody using it. He said, sure. And within a week, I got everybody using it. It was just, I knew everybody on the platform, and it was a good tool and easy to use, and everybody connected, and off we went. And at the end of the phone call, I actually met him down in Philadelphia to go kind of do that. At the end of that, like Italian restaurant thing, there was a video clip on the TV of CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties was literally playing on TV, and Matt and I were like, that's amazing. Crypto stuff on TV. I can't believe it. And he said, what we really ought to do is make a game. Now, note, he didn't say we should make a business that's about a game. He just said we should make a game. That's always been Matt's mentality. We should have a game. I'm the one that's like, no, the damn thing has to be a business. But Matt said that, and I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but in my spare time, I'm a game designer. There's a Kickstarter game that I made. I'm not super proud of it, but it's called Get Some. And it's about getting laid. But it's really about storytelling, but it's all like sexual, funny storytelling.
Is this available to the public?
It is no longer available to the public. You're gonna have a hard time finding this, it's for the best, honestly. At some point, I had to like burn all the boxes and get rid of them. Yeah, I didn't like any of the logistics of it. It was really hard. Shipping it was not like my forte. I'm not like reseller in our community, just able to go ship these things easily.
Ron said he found it on eBay.
Yeah, you could. There's a couple of these on eBay. They're pretty funny.
You burned them, although that does make the remaining games.
Yeah. They're more valuable. That's right. I've always been into burn mechanics. But yeah, so I was a game designer, and actually, so some of the first cards, the artist that I used was a guy off of Fiverr, and I like interviewed 20 people, and I found one, and I'm like, all right, help me make these card arts. He's actually at this company, still working with us, making cards. It's the same team. and we've gotten a lot more sophisticated since then, but that artist was the start of what we were doing.
Nice. Okay, so Matt said
Oh,
we should make. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So he said we should make a game, and so after I made Get Some, I actually made basically I made Steam Monsters. The initial version of it was called Chibrex. So Chib or Chibi is an art style. It's like a caricature, cartoon caricature, giant head, little body. And I started putting together all these screens, and I hired some Indian designer to go put together some of those screens. And when Matt said, "Hey, I want to go do this," I told him that's amazing because I have a lot of art sitting on a shelf. I did it to make a paper game, but I'm like, I'm not making a paper game out of this. Screw that. I'm never shipping things again.
Is this like a proto Splinterlands?
Yeah. And so Chipwrex was like a proto Splinterlands. So he said, look, I can build this and I'll design it and I can put it together. And I said, that's great. And we went halvesies on the deal. And I got my $2,000 back that I had spent on art. And that was like my take back. And otherwise, Matt and I just thought like a couple of our friends are going to buy some cards, and people bought $350,000 worth of cards in the first 6 months of the business.
Was that because people knew you already?
Well, that was part of it. So, all the time that we talked about BidBots, I used BidBots and I grew my account pretty large. And I don't think I've ever been the number one most followed, but I was in like the top 10. I was a top witness, so people knew my account from that too. And so yeah, I had influence here. And so this whole blockchain thing, it was pretty handy to have like, let's make a game, and if you talk about it, we'll reward you with post votes. And that I think really helped spread us, not just in the Steam and Hive community, but elsewhere as well. So
Splinterlands was born.
Yeah, our first sale happened in May. And then it just, money kept rolling in. We were selling alpha packs for $2, and if we got 10 or my Kickstarter did 20 grand. So if we did 20 grand, I would have called that a success. In between like May 23rd, I forget exactly when it was, but early May of 2018 and the end of December, we sold $350,000 worth of this stuff. So like I had just gotten fired from Macmillan along with all the other head honchos. I took this like part-time gig doing some like laboratory chemistry stuff and a little bit of Gen Chem stuff. But my heart wasn't in it because I was already over education of like too much of this feels like a big trap, and get rich kids to get credentialed but not teach them like really important skills. And I started having real problems with it. And so, I kind of stopped doing the chemistry thing at all in 2018. And Matt and I, we didn't take a real paycheck till like, I think April of 2019. We took some money out of the business and gave ourselves some small distributions, but we didn't start
close to a year there,
yeah,
right? That
yeah.
you're making the game on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah.
And when was it first playable? Do you remember that? How long from when people bought?
I don't quite know. At the very beginning, it was super spammy. You would just like play the same team all the time, and you would play it like 100 times in a day. So I think the first playable version was like 4 months after our first sale. But it was like the most rudimentary thing ever.
So that's that MVP model.
Yeah, MVP, get something out.
Okay, so that sort of like brings you up to Splinterlands. And now, okay, so I'm imagining you as this square block of clay, and you've had your school and your various experiences like pulling away blocks of clay to make you into a CEO-shaped aggro. What do you think were like the most important lessons or the most important things that were changed about you or your thinking to come from these different areas that you've experienced?
Well, I think my character arc going from very much I could have been a super woke progressive Democrat and even ran as a Democrat for a state rep. Um, and I have since transitioned to like a raging anarchist. And honestly, I think it's useful in this environment because crypto people, I think, tend to lean more towards liberty than not. Um, and so I don't know how well I could do as like a woke CEO here. I think you don't meet a lot of them. They don't last in crypto very long. So I think that transition and that arc was pretty important. Um, a lot of community building. I mean, that's a lot of what I've done. It was sort of like Matt was going to deal with all the silica chips and I was going to deal with all the carbon-based life forms. And so trying to figure out how to, these guys are cats, right? Like, wrangle crypto cats. They have short attention spans. Don't stick around with projects very long. It's tough.
Okay, great. And now the thing that I would love to hear is not talking about current projects or projects right on the horizon, but what would you love to see in like 3 years?
Our baby just woke up. So I think Mr. Jedi is going to join us on air here in just a second. Let's see. What do I want in 3 years?
What do you envision for Splinterlands? Not now. We get through whatever's going on now. What are your medium-sized dreams for Splinterlands in 3+ years?
Yeah, so I want Splinterlands to look sort of like a Web3 Disney. And Disney is more focused on like movies. I want it to be sort of more focused on games, where I feel like there's a content piece, a broadcast piece, a video game piece, like an experiential piece. I feel like we have a lot of stories that we can tell and those stories aren't currently being told. And I feel like that would be good for our company. Is that like I think about Pokemon. I think about Pokemon a bunch. Where like Pokemon's an okay game. I wouldn't describe it as like the best game I've ever played or the richest game I've ever played. But people love it, and they love it not just because of the game, but they love it because of the backstory. They love it because of the characters, the animations, the videos. So I just feel like a lot of this stuff, they're not supplemental, but symbiotic, where like you need content to sell the game and you need a game to give the content, to be able to monetize the content. Because like just having a show by itself, it's really hard to like make enough money to exist. So the magic sweet spot for a business is to have content that everybody loves, games that you could sell and characters you can sell that actually bring in money, and create a far bigger brand than what we are just as a one crypto game. You can come on air.
Okay, so you said more focused on games than movies, but you also mentioned Disney and mentioned Pokemon shows. Would you envision a Splinterlands movie or series?
Yeah, I'd love. So Dragon Prince would be sort of like the go-to of like, here's some animation, here's some thing. That's what I'd love to try to put together. Did they get the baby out? The land baby has not gotten out. Here's Mr. Jedi.
He doesn't have a card yet.
He doesn't. Okay. Ron wants to give him a couple questions. Good sir, when you think of Splinterlands, what do you think of? Excellent. When you are just waking up, what is your favorite thing to do? Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, he's not super entertaining as a guest.
Yeah, he's a boy of a few words, but yeah. when he speaks, it is the word ball.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And I think just for the records, I think we're going to do something like 7 more minutes or so because we got meetings at the end of this, so we're winding down a little bit here.
Yes. I'm kind of thinking, so we talked about the past. I don't really want to talk about the present. You handle that on Town Hall. There's a lot going on there. But I do like glimpses of the future. Not this upcoming age, not next year, but how big do you see Splinterlands being in 3+ years?
Yeah, I mean, my hope would be to have multiple hundreds of people here, multiple games being supported all at the same time. Some of those games being part of the Splinterlands ecosystem, some being part of Genesis League. Content getting created for them that's videos and shorts and podcasts and just all the things. And we tell the story of our characters, tell the story of our community, tell the story of our company, and do that in ways that hopefully people haven't heard this before. We're crypto OGs, we're NFT OGs, we're one of the first, if not the first game out here. I don't know that there's a lot around. Like you don't learn a lot about peace, prosperity, and freedom. You don't learn a lot about like how we're going to interact with each other peaceful and professionally. I feel like there's things that ways that we can teach people and engage people that is hard to do elsewhere or just doesn't happen elsewhere.
You mentioned peace, prosperity, and freedom early on, and I redirected you because I wanted to talk more about the past. But okay, what is the biggest thing that you think? Splinterlands it's a game. What's the biggest thing you think you can do here, you personally, or with the power of the company here to further any one of those, peace, prosperity, or freedom?
I think it's crypto adoption. There's hard parts to crypto. The markets can be different, can be very challenging, and navigating them can be hard. But taking personal ownership of your money, your community, having governance that is accountable and transparent, I think those are world changing things that didn't exist at the time I was growing up. These are brand new. And the more that I can help people get exposure to that and learn about it, the better off I think all of us will be as like a humanitarian effort, as on a global scale. Like adopt crypto and watch the world change. Your mindset changes, not your keys, not your coins. I don't own this. Who prints it? Who has the authority to print it? And why do those people get to print it and not us? Or why do the rules change whenever they want as opposed to something consistent? And I think when people realize that separating money from the state is really a powerful tool to control just how much influence the state can have. I don't necessarily hate all types of government. If I thought we had better people in place and better systems to preserve better people in place, I might feel differently. But for now, it's, I don't really trust these people. I don't think they have our best interest in mind. And crypto to me is one of the best antidotes in the world to that.
All right, my final question. 100 years in the future, some little kid looks up your name on whatever the equivalent of Wikipedia is. What do you want to be credited to you?
Formation and growth of Splinterlands. I mean, this I don't know. I've done a lot of things in my life. But this one is the most meaningful to me. I mean, separate from family things, but professionally, building this game, building this community, and bringing people into this ecosystem, I think is the most important thing that we could do. Some of that is because I want my company to grow and profits and business and revenue and marketing. But, at the heart, Matt just wanted to make a game, and I just wanted to bring people into crypto. Like that's our starting point, and we got all these other concerns because we have families that are here and people that are part of our community. And now there's lots of earning and all these, things are worth millions of dollars, and it's that has an impact on folks. But at the start, it's really just, let's make a game and let's help people.
Awesome. Well, we are just about at time. Anything else you want to share?
What do you want to do for our next one?
Well, I'd like to do. I have some ideas that I don't think are worth sharing yet, but I think it would be great to pick somebody from somewhere in the Splinterlands community. That might be, team members are easy, but it might be a player that that wants to come on, and that might make sense. Maybe we don't do the full hour of grilling this poor person. But I think it would also be cool to have a channel for communication to come in. If there's anybody who you think, hey, this person should really be, their voice should be amplified. I'm not sure the best way. You could just reach out to me on Discord.
Yeah, either she's Liberty Lass and I'm Aggro. It's a Mrs. Aggie. They changed it to Mrs. Aggie and Baby Ag. It's hilarious, Ron. But yeah, you guys can just hit us up if you want to go talk to us, or you think that there's if you'd like to be interviewed or just sort of share your experience. We'd love to talk to you. And if we can't, then I'll force somebody that works here to come on. In the spirit of liberty. I think that's it. So Ron, let's wrap this up. Everybody, thanks for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed just sort of like some nice Dave, if you want to come on, I think you should be one of our first guests. So I appreciate you guys being here. I know it's not super Splinterlandsy, but it's just, talking about this game and talking with the founders, and pretty soon it'll be talking with you guys and what you care about and what's of interest. But that's what I got. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, Ron.
Ron, can you take us out of here?
Reigns and hope is lost. When your darkest days aren't saved by the dawn, we bring the light to help guide the way. We are with you. We are the Rift Watchers. When your enemies have spread far and wide, when you're out of places to run and hide, follow the rules, help is on the way, we stand with you.